So let's get a new guy in there.
Michael says, I don't have faith in Fox, y'all. Watch him try to go one-on-one against Lou Dort. That's exactly what we were talking about during the game.
I can't argue with that.
Exactly what we were talking about during the game. I love
and
Fox,
Lou Dort
man.
didn't force that turnover.
Yeah.
He's a great defender, but he didn't force that turnover.
I am a huge De'Aaron Fox fan. Don't get me wrong. I love Fox. I love watching him in college. I love him shutting down Lonzo Ball. I wanted the Kings to draft Fox. But, you know, watching these games really makes me wonder. It really does. This is year 5. This is max contract year. You're supposed to be the man. You haven't been playing that well this year. We talked about the last 2 games. He seemed to have got his mojo back and was scoring more. Kings lost both of those games. We talked about the Kings' biggest need this year is a go-to guy. Because late in games, it's a close game. You need a guy that can get you a bucket. It doesn't matter if it's 2, doesn't matter if it's a 3, but there are certain points in the game where you're like, hey, we need a bucket here. Who do you give it to? Hasn't been De'Aaron Fox at this point.
No, it hasn't. I still think Harrison Barnes is more that guy right now than De'Aaron Fox is.
So I got a poll going in the chat. Who should the Kings trade first, Buddy Hield or De'Aaron Fox? We got 53%, De'Aaron Fox 47%, Buddy Hield. This is wild. If we would have done this poll a couple months ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, Buddy Hield would have been like odds-on favorite, like no doubt. And now everyone's calling for De'Aaron Fox to be traded. Let us know who you want to trade De'Aaron Fox for. Is it Ben Simmons? Do you guys feel like Ben Simmons is the guy? Like, I honestly don't know. Like, a change needs to be made. We agree that the Kings need to make a change. Things need to change for this team. But is that change Ben Simmons for De'Aaron Fox? I don't know.
I don't know either. It's just disappointing because you can see this team play the way that they should be playing. Like in the first half of this game, De'Aaron Fox had a pretty good first half. He had 12 or 14 points, like you said. He was hitting threes. But more importantly, they were playing the right style of offense. When Tyrese was out there, the ball was moving. Everybody was touching it.
Yep.
Rashawn Holmes was going. Harrison Barnes was getting going.
Yep.
De'Aaron Fox was being smart about taking shots within the offense when he had them available to him. As soon as Tyrese goes to the bench, boom, clear it out, give De'Aaron the ball, let him go one-on-one. He was still in a rhythm. He was hitting that step-back 3. It looked great. Everything looked really, really good.
Yep.
And then in the second half, it all falls apart.
Tyrese Haliburton, 3 of 13 tonight.
Yeah.
We talked about him being a key to this Kings team success and how he's been playing well. Luke was raving about his defensive improvements this year. And 1 block, 0 steals for him tonight. I know it's his first game back from injury, so you can't really expect the world from him at this point.
Yeah, but not surprising to see that you shoot bad coming off of sitting for 2 nights. But.
Yeah, and he got others involved, which is the important point. But they lost this game to the Thunder. They lost. I can't believe it. Shout out Lane.
18.
Lane wants to trade Fox for Jimmer. I don't know if I agree with that, but thanks for joining us.
Yeah. That's the last thing Kings need to see is Jimmer Fredette back.
Sacktown Breakdown says, Luke will definitely be fired. We might make some trades. Just don't know if they will make the team better. Who's playing good enough for teams to want them?
That's a good point. It's a good point. Ben Simmons isn't playing good enough for people to want him, though.
Yeah, that's a tough one there. But we just have to look at this as we have a capable front office now. This front office has not made a bad move. I mean, you could say extending De'Aaron Fox.
Consider keeping Luke Walton on as head coach is a bad move.
Yeah, correct. But as far as like players go, you could say maybe extending De'Aaron Fox was a bad move. But you give me any GM in the league, they're going to extend De'Aaron Fox in this team. Like
it's 23 years old. Of course,
it's a no-brainer. But you hit on draft picks like Tyrese Haliburton, Davion Mitchell. You lock up Rashawn Holmes on a very, very reasonable deal. Great team deal for Rashawn Holmes. And he's been playing great. So I think this front office has been pretty competent at this point. But they've kind of sat back a little bit and just been like, okay, I want to see where we're at here. I want to evaluate things from afar. And it's pretty clear Luke Walton might not be the guy for this team. And as much as I hate to say it, De'Aaron Fox might not be the guy for this team either. So I think some moves will definitely be made. I don't know if they're going to happen in the next week or 2 weeks. Like I said, December 15th is going to be a huge date because that's when all these guys are unlocked. Anybody that signed a contract this offseason is unlocked and eligible to be traded. So I think there are going to be some big moves happening. And it's interesting because I thought this last year too, and offseason as well. So that could dilute my point here. But they got to make a move. They can't keep losing. People want to keep their jobs. So Kings have to make some moves.
They do. They can't let another trade deadline come and pass without doing anything. They absolutely have to make some moves. Even if it's just trading Marvin Bagley. Like at this point, I feel like if that were to happen, Kings fans would at least be able to say, okay, at least something is going on here. We all realize that Marvin Bagley is not a part of this team. Why is he still on the bench every game? Let's get anything for him. A bag of chips from Safeway, like you put it on the Royal Report. I mean, anything for this guy.
Yeah, if you guys missed that this morning, we released another episode of the Royal Report. We talked about the Kings, the struggles. We talked about the combo of De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton, whether that might work. We talked about Coach Walton, a lot of different subjects around your Kings. So if you guys missed that episode, make sure you guys check it out. It's not going to make the pain of tonight any better, but it will at least give you a little bit more insight to this Kings team, especially if you haven't been able to watch every single team. So that brings me to my next topic, Calvin. I've heard the Pistons are interested in Marvin Bagley. I think they've been interested for at least a year now. We talk about the Kings offered Marvin Bagley for Sadiq Bay last year, which the Pistons declined. You and I looked up the stats for Sadiq Bay. He's having a pretty good season. Other than shooting, he's having a pretty good season. Mm-hmm. So that leads me to, if the Kings do make a trade and they end up trading Bagley to potentially the Pistons, is there anybody on that Pistons roster who you feel like the Kings should target?
Well, I love Sadiq Bay. I loved him coming out of the draft. If anybody has been watching our channel for as long as we've been around, you'll remember we did a draft preview special 2 years ago, and Sadiq Bay was one of the players that we targeted for the Kings at number 12, which they eventually took Tyrese Haliburton with. So I like him a lot. Jerami Grant is a really, really interesting player to me. I know that the Pistons just drafted Cade Cunningham. They paid Jerami Grant big. That's kind of like the future of this team, those two guys.
Yep.
But if you could somehow convince them to do a deal involving Buddy Hield, maybe a couple other guys or one other guy and a draft pick or something like that, and you could get Jerami Grant in return, we've talked about how the Kings have such little production from the power forward spot. Jerami Grant is a big-time scorer who could fill that role immediately. Not the best defender in the league, but incredibly athletic, good rebounder, has the capability to be a good defender. I think he could be a huge return piece for the Kings.
Let's talk about this trade deal. We had a section this morning on the Royal Report where we broke down a bunch of different trade offers for the Kings. One of them was this Pistons deal. This is Marvin Bagley, Tristan Thompson, Jamias Ramsey, a 2022 and a 2024 first-round pick to Detroit from Sacramento for Jerami Grant. How do you feel about that deal now?
I like that deal. I like it a lot. It doesn't solve the problem that the Kings have of who runs the offense, who controls the ball most of the game. You still have that De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton differential between the two. But Jerami Grant is no slouch. I mean, the dude is a really, really good player in this league. He is 27 years old, so he's just now entering his prime. I like the deal. It gives up draft picks.
Yep.
But
at least they're protected.
It's protected, and this is the type of deal that you expect to catapult yourself into the playoffs with.
Yep.
So if you give up draft picks, but you're a playoff team, you live with that.
Yep. Yeah, Neil has a good point. He says, nothing against Fox, but it's much like keeping Cousins. He was the best center in the league, but do we win with Fox? No. Fox is not the best fit for the team offense as a point guard. That's a very good point.
You might be right.
And honestly, that is one of the disadvantages when you draft best available and not best fit. The last 2 years, the Kings have taken the approach that we're going to draft best available. And they took a point guard both years. So you can't expect that to help De'Aaron Fox. You really can't.
Yeah.
However, you look at the other side of the coin, the reason they took Marvin Bagley is because they didn't think Luka Doncic fit with De'Aaron Fox. So instead of taking best available, they drafted for need and position, and that didn't work out for Bagley. So either way, you're kind of screwed as a Kings fan, right?
Yeah. It's also different when you look at best available at number 2 overall and best available at 12 overall or 9 overall.
Yep. The Sacktown Breakdown says it's nothing like keeping Cousins. Cousins was a toxic personality in the locker room who whined to refs when not getting calls, and the team played 4-on-5 on defense. Yeah, I see your point of view as well. I don't think that Neil was saying it like that. It's basically just, can you win with this player? Even though Cousins was the best center in the league, they couldn't win with him.
No, he's not a leader. DeMarcus Cousins is not a leader.
Is De'Aaron Fox a leader?
He's more of a leader than DeMarcus Cousins. I'll say that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't bitch and complain. I never see him complain about anything. I mean, yes, he talks to the officials. He says some things here and there, but he doesn't hold his head low no matter what's happening. The guy always plays hard. He just misses a ton of shots. That's it.
Yeah, I think it was a good point. Is you and I, when we were watching the game, we were talking about the key to this team, Kings team success, is that Tyrese needs to have the ball more, because Tyrese is more of a true point guard. And what does that mean for De'Aaron Fox? That means that either he needs to move on to another team and they need to add another player, or De'Aaron Fox needs to transition into a real 2-guard.
Yeah, he needs to be better at catch and shoot. And right now, he is not. I mean, he's not even close to that.
And how does that happen?
How do you become better at catch and shoot?
Because you got to think he's been practicing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's putting up shots. I mean, look, it's the same thing as why is Davion Mitchell a 62% free throw shooter? It's not because his mechanics are bad. It's not because he doesn't practice free throws. I don't know what it is. Some guys just have the ability to shoot better than others. It just is what it is. De'Aaron Fox has improved his shooting, even though everybody, you only see or you only remember what has happened most recently, and you see his shooting struggles, and it sucks. But he has improved his outside shooting since he first came into the league.
Yep.
But the question is how much, what's his ceiling? How good can he actually be as a shooter?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that question. His mechanics aren't bad. He's short on a lot of his shots. I don't know what the real reason is for that. Maybe it's because he tweaked his shot mechanics, in the last couple of years. He's worked really hard on it. At the end of the day, some guys don't realize their full potential. I'm not saying De'Aaron Fox won't do that, but I also don't know what his full potential as a pure shooter is. Do I think he's a 40% three-point shooter? Probably not at this point. I'd be happy if he shot 35, 36% from three, but I don't know if he's ever going to do that.
I mean, we've seen guys later on in their careers improve their three-point shooting.
Yeah.
It's been possible. But, yeah, I think
we've also seen guys go the other way. I mean, look at Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
He's never been a phenomenal shooter, but he used to be a more reliable shooter than he is today. I don't know what happened there or why he suddenly can't shoot as well. And it's been years and years and years. He's still a really effective player, and I think Westbrook and Fox are probably the two most comparable guys for each one of them in the whole league right now.
Yeah.
They play 100 miles an hour down the hill, get to the basket. They can distribute a little bit. They're going to turn the ball over a lot. They're not going to shoot well.
Yep.
But there are a lot of teams that would love to have De'Aaron Fox and Russell Westbrook on their team. So you're right. Like when Tyrese Haliburton was drafted, I said, I don't know if this is going to work, the two of them together, because they both need the ball in their hands for different reasons too. De'Aaron Fox needs the ball in his hand to score and to be in rhythm.
Yep.
Tyrese Haliburton needs the ball in his hands not to score all the time, but he's a much better facilitator. He's a much better orchestrator of the offense. They get better looks when he is controlling the offense and has the ball in his hands. So it's a very difficult catch-22 to have for them right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. Guys, we are going to take a quick break. I need to grab a beer, and we'll be right back. So we'll see you in a couple minutes.